Hello, we're back to head modeling, and the first order of business is to attach this ear to the hole that was provided in the side of the head for it. Let's turn off image planes. We're going to look at the number of CVs on the edge to line up with these number of CVs as I spoke before in the video. I'm going to attach them together through merge and make them one mesh. So if I select just one edge of this border ring of the opening and just hit that edge and the right arrow, we should get the whole ring selected. You can see that it's selected, and we're not selecting the CVs yet. Here's a little tip, is if you have a selection in edges and you want to switch to a different component, say vertices, go to select menu up there, swap out the edges for the vertices. So convert selection and you say to vertices. See, now the vertices are selected, and we can see that we have 12 vertices on that edge. If you have something selected and you want to swap it over to different kinds of components, maybe vertices to faces, faces to vertices, different components that you might use, you can convert selection, and you can see all these different ways you could go, all the way to UVs to shell border. Anyway, this says a total of 12 vertices around the whole of the ear, in which we have to attach this one. Hit the right arrow to have all of the edge of that selected and swap that out for vertices. So convert selection to vertices. It's also as a hotkey command F9 if you like. And it's telling us around the ear we have 14 vertices. We have to decide whether we can delete one edge or add one edge here or there to make them one-to-one. Now for me, in my mesh here, in my character design model, I am going to choose to add 2 more edges, therefore 2 more CVs to the edge of the hole. You might be different in your particular design. And the reason for that for me is because around the ear, as I built, every one is fairly essential. If I remove any one of these, they're going to produce n-gons. That one I could take out, but it would produce an n-gon here. Keep this as is and add 2 more edges. Okay, so one edge I'm going to add right here on the head. So on this area that's coming up around and over the brow line, I could use that maybe for definition. I'll maybe massage that out a little bit more later. And the second edge I'm going to add is right here in the back of the head. So it's a little bit less visible, I should say. Okay, and that will give me a total of 14, which I can attach one-to-one with the ear. I could just spend a little time massaging those points into the new skin. Like so. Just distributing them more uniformly around the edges. And the same with the back here. Since it's not well seen, it'll be covered with hair or a texture. No need to spend too much time on that. Also taking a look at this finished half of the head, let's say, in terms of the mesh, it does seem a bit sparse here. I've massaged these CVs and edges as distant as uniform as I can. It might be if I need facial expressions or more control in the muscles of the cheeks around that I could add another edge all the way around. In this topology, it would flow in this way, not interfering with the ear. So if that's the detail you need to put in your design, then add at will or where necessary. Anyhow, double checking with the CVs around the edge of the hole. 2 vertices, we have 14 now, as well as 14 on the edge of the ear. So it's ready to attach. So it's not just sticking it on there, you know, just leave a little bit of gap. And you might have remembered this from attaching the hand. Actually, the first step I could recommend it, have a gap in the space where you can see what the heck you're doing. And then just use snap. You can, even if you want back the ear off, if you need more space, it gets too tangled, and you can stretch it back. But we just want to get that snapped as clearly as possible, and then we can bring the ear back however works best for yours. Holding V down to snap. Snapping one-to-one. And going to its closest reasonable neighbor for it to snap, and should be 14 to 14, and you know, look something, this one should be over there, right? Once you attach it, or snap it I should say, bring it back to make it more optically simpler. Okay, next step is to combine, because again, this is just snap. They're two different meshes. In order for us to merge the vertices, they need to be the same mesh. To do that, we need to combine them. So we can just select the ear, doesn't matter which first, and select the head, and then in our modeling toolbox, we can just click combine here, whichever is the quickest reach for that tool. Then we have one, and now you got to go into probably turn off X-ray and merge. So when you select each one, you're going to, of course, have two vertices at every joint, which you're going to turn into one by merging. The shift command that on our shelf to here, we're going to merge it to the one. You're going to see that 2 change to a 1 just when I hit G. So G is again repeat last tool used. So I'm just going to quickly now go around the whole thing, and each one hit G, 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 to repeat that merge command until I don't miss a spot. Make sure everything is one vertice combined together. Okay. And then backing off, voila, we have an ear attached. Of course, it needs a little bit of touch here to ease it into the shape a little bit better, but it is attached. Maybe massage it a little bit. Especially here, you can see how important it was to leave this flat as possible, what I described as the bell shape of making this part of the ear flat. So it smooths into the side of the cheek as evenly as possible. I'm turning some of these the edges a bit, rotating them as they were stressed, and I was adding extra stress to be like that. So I've attached the ear to my satisfaction and smoothed it in as well. I think I'm going to go. It is about ready to mirror over to the other side for the whole head. We should also talk about the eye. Currently we're using this eyeball in the center, which is a stand-in. It's just a dummy eye. Well, just like the ear, and I showed you a demo for creating the ear, there's an eye template, there's an actual complete eye with a whole rig system to control the pupil and everything. We're not going to mirror the eye. Okay, we're not going to mirror the eye because it doesn't make sense, because we don't really have a bilateral eye. We have two eyes, so we're just going to duplicate the eye over. With that logic, I'm just going to go ahead and mirror the head now because the ear's finished, and I don't have the completed eye, and the dummy eye will just be fine for now because it's going to be exactly the same size. Okay, so let's go to this next step. I'm going to mirror it, and then I'll go to the last part in the video of showing you more exclusive detail about just the eye, because that's pretty important, and I have time-saving OneDrive location that you can just grab an eye and customize it yourself very quickly. So let's get this first part out of the way of mirroring. Okay, the important thing to remember, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect on the ear or anything else, because you can continue modeling it, but what has to be ready is this line right here has to be absolutely flat. You can't have a few points straggling off that. You have to flatten that to an absolute line. And the way we're going to do that, if you recall, is retain component spacing on the move tool. And we're going to take that off and then snap to grid in order to move that equally. So if you might recall, I grabbed everything on the edge, and make sure you don't have anything you don't want, all the edge CVs and nothing but. Make sure you don't have anything weird going on here where you have any of the inner stuff selected. Alright, then we're just going to the front view. Okay, then with the move tool we have right here, that's the move tool. Of course, we're going to go to move snap settings. This should be off. I had it off for before. The default is on, so you want to make sure retain component spacing is off. And X, snap, and it snaps now mathematically perfectly to that line, and it's ready for mirroring. All right, well, the next step is in mirroring, and I'm going to tell you about another little trick, a little tip. If you're using Maya 19, there's a little bit of an error in it. It seems like every version of Maya, there's a lot of new features. Well, not that many, but there's new features, and there's some things that no longer that have an error in it. So that's just the way of what they do. So if you're using Maya 18, it shouldn't have this problem. If you're using Maya 20, I think they fixed it. If you're using Maya 19, there is a patch in 19.1. What is it? It's an error in the mirroring. It's annoying, but it's very easy to work around it once you know it. So let me show you what the error is if you're using Maya 19 in mirroring and how to fix it. It's no real big deal here. Okay, so it's this, and if you mirror tool here in Mesh, and by the way, why didn't it happen to my body? I was using my 18 for those earlier videos. I want to show you the different versions and the differences and the workarounds. Well, in the mirror options here that pop open when I go to Mesh and then Mirror option box, okay, I'm ready to mirror it. Where? I'm going to, of course, mirror it on the x-axis, the negative x-axis, because it goes in this direction. The opposite of the red arrow is negative x. A good habit is to freeze transformations. A good habit is using the home key. You can move, pivot right to the edge and everything. All right, well, that's not going to solve the problem, but we're going to fix it. I'll show you what the problem is at first. Everything default says world's the position axis. That's fine. It's cut geometry. That's fine. Combine with original. Yes. Merge with border at yes. Offset 0. Yes, that's typical. That's normal. Now I'm going to click mirror, and you see that nothing happened. Really annoying. It's just a little error, that a patch that they fixed, and you won't have that in a different version of Maya. Let's back up and see why. Let's just do it again. I'm going to select the head and then go to the mirror option box, except the problem in this error is a mathematical error and the offset value. That, as a 0, produces an error in Maya 19. All you have to do is put a number in here, like a really infinitesimal offset, like 0001, and that fixes the error. Yes, it moves it 1,000th or 100th over, but it fixes the error. So when I click mirror, it then correctly mirrors it. Another thing to consider, see how it did that point right there, that Adam's apple. I did not intend for that to happen. If you back up and look, it's not supposed to do that. That has to do with the merge threshold. So if you click apply and then go to merge threshold, it's going to fix this. Stuff that's pinching together where it should be quads, that's not right. That's another error. So on merge threshold, you see this in the pop-up control box for the poly mirror you did. Just put the merge threshold to 1 if it changed that after you create the offset, and then you fix the problem. Just a little step there and you're good. This is just a very common thing with all softwares. The new bugs pop up all the time. All right, now we have a full head here. I'm going to finish up this video, but first, there's still more work to do with modeling. Once you mirror it over, you're going to notice it looks a little bit like when you have these in a mirror, distorted, maybe edgy or pointed. It's got this bone sticking out. So there's more modeling and massaging to do. It has this boxiness here you can see building up. That's not quite intended. And these looks like tendony things, and maybe this thing that I didn't intend. A pointiness or edginess, that just naturally happens after mirroring, and you're going to have to spend some time loosening that and continue to sculpting to make them seem flowing with the correct shape. So what I'm going to do on mine before I put the eye in and talk about it is work on smoothing this a bit all over. And something came up that did before, and it's important to show. when I want to use the sculpt tool in this head and I click, I have an error here. It says error file, yada yada. Sculpting cannot be performed on non-manifold geometry. I think it's around the eyelashes we have non-manifolds in geometry, and they get created during extrusions. If you have this error, that means that could not be brought into Mudbox to sculpt, or many other programs that won't accept non-manifolds or other errors in topology. So what you do, go to a mesh, cleanup, and go to the option box here, remove the non-manifold geometry under remove geometry. Again, this is in mesh cleanup, and then I'm going to click cleanup. Okay, so it identified the error that had a problem around there, and it deleted fix to quad the non-manifold geometry. So now I don't have a problem with it or the error. Now I can sculpt on it. So now the brush shows up and I get no red error. So if that happens with yours, a little bit too strong there, you can just use mesh cleanup to fix. And that, I can play with my different tools with relax, take out some of the lumpiness if I don't want that, and I'm not worrying too much about the symmetry, because putting it a little bit off symmetry is not such a terrible thing when building a naturalistic face. All right, you know what, for the sake of compartmentalization, I'm going to do the eye in a separate video. So I'll cleanly end here with my finished mirror over head, just with one dummy eye in there. That will be okay, because it's going to be next replaced with a more accurate eye rig, which you can customize as I explained, and I'm going to say that for the next video. Okay, see you then.